I'm Richie Z. Welcome to another episode of Automotive Heaven. I've been talking about this place for many years. In fact, I think the first time I was out here was about a dozen years ago. We're at the Studebaker Museum in South Bend, Indiana. And this particular show has got a lot of interesting factors in it. We're going to start back in 1852, I believe, if I remember properly, is when the Studebaker company first started out. Now, I'm going to introduce you to Andy Beckman. Now, Andy was on our radio show. Move over just a hair. There we go. He was on our radio show a few years ago.
Yeah.
And man, this guy really knows his stuff when it comes to Studebakers, but we got some interesting stories. Andy, help me out. They started in 1852, and this is what they were building. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, this is actually the family's Conestoga wagon that they built in the 1830s. The Studebakers were blacksmiths and wagon makers. And the father, John Clement Studebaker, built this wagon to bring the family from Ohio, actually from Pennsylvania to Ohio, and later came with them to northern Indiana when they moved here. His two eldest sons trained as blacksmiths and wagon makers at their father's feet, opened a blacksmith shop in downtown South Bend February 16th of 1852.
Now, they went on, the beginning was these horse-drawn wagons, and then they did some farm equipment.
Yeah, they started off basically building like the basic farm wagon, and they broadened their line to, by the late 1880s, the Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company is the world's largest builder of horse-drawn equipment. And they're building everything from presidential carriages to heavy equipment for like construction sites to sleighs for winter use and anything and everything in between. And they also built harnesses and saddles and everything else you need for the horse-drawn driving.
One of the wonderful things about Studebaker, too, is they have a huge history in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, many folks probably wander past the Fine Arts Building downtown and maybe notice the Studebaker name above the door. And yeah, right there, right on Michigan Avenue.
I got to tell you this story. This is cute, folks. You know me, a storyteller, right? I was working for one of the major companies a number of years ago doing the tours and that, and we would all muster in the morning before we went out with a dozen buses, the double-decker buses, and there was always questions like, does anybody know about this? Or so we're all sitting there. There's a dozen tour guides, a dozen drivers, and somebody mentioned, I had a tour out yesterday, and they saw that Studebaker sign etched into the building on Michigan Avenue across the street from the Art Museum, and they didn't know what it was. They said that it was on the Fine Arts Building, they said. I was the only one in the class that said that was the original Studebaker showroom for their coaches, and that's when they were building not just these wagons, but they were building coaches for travel, for presidents, and for the elite would buy these coaches, not only just the presidents, correct?
Well, to borrow a phrase from General Motors, Studebaker had a product for every person purpose, including very luxurious carriages, like the Richie Z's of the world would be traveling in. But the Michigan Avenue location, that was really their showpiece in the big city. Peter Studebaker, another one of the brothers, he really was a salesman. He went out to the major metropolitan areas, kind of starting in Chicago, and established the outposts, and that was really a feather in their cap for the Studebaker company at that time.
Now, what I heard too, I did a lot of research on this because the tours downtown and people they really assembled them there. A lot of assembly was done there, but the reason for the 6 huge windows facing Michigan Avenue, facing Grant Park, was because they would put these finished coaches in the windows as a display, like dealerships do with cars.
Exactly.
But they built that gorgeous building. It's still standing there today. That building was probably somewhere around the 1892, 93 World's Fair, right?
Yeah, right about in there. I think they had a couple different locations in Chicago, but that was the first one, I believe, and really the showpiece for the company in Chicago.
You know, folks, you're going to really love this one. Andy and I are going to take you around today. Andy knows so much about it. I'm going to let him run with the ball sometimes. And as you know what I do, it's never been about me. It's always about the place I'm at, the purpose, the vehicle, whatever it is. So you're going to be seeing a lot of really cool, interesting ways to get around on four wheels, right?
Indeed.
1863, Studebaker built a hearse. You know what they use a hearse for. But the interesting thing about it is, you know, the craftsmanship of the work, the woodworking and that. What really blows my mind, you know, we really think we're technical today. We're superior, above everybody. We have computers, we have smartphones. But these vehicles, and in the 1800s, I've done a lot of stuff, homes and vehicles had round glass in them. That's amazing. You don't see that technology here today. And I don't know about you, but it adds something to the look of the vehicle or even the home. We're going to be doing some homes, but 1863, a horse-drawn hearse by the Studebaker company.
This is a 1910 Studebaker dump wagon. You would find these on a construction site. It's a forerunner of the modern-day dump truck. Unlike dump trucks of today, however, you don't tilt the bed back. It actually, the floor of the bed, which is actuated by the lever up here next to the driver's seat, would open up, and it releases the cargo underneath. And back in the day, you'd probably see a bunch of these around construction sites in the greater Chicago area.
You know, everywhere you look in this place, you see something unique, something different, something elegant. The technology back then was just amazing. And this vehicle is, again, you're higher up. It could be used for a number of different purposes, but it'll seat, I believe, around 10 people. Really a cool looking vehicle. The presidential limousines, the coaches, the luxurious coaches that were designed and built for the presidents to use. I asked an interesting question earlier. I wanted to know if any of them were armored or protecting the president of the United States, but back then that wasn't needed, wasn't even thought of back then. But look at the beautiful workmanship of some of the presidential coaches, horse-drawn coaches. Now this was built for the 1893 World's Fair, and this is like the ultimate vehicle back in 1893. And the purpose of it is all done in metal, stainless steel, and aluminum. But the purpose of this wagon was like a calling card. It was an advertisement for the Studebaker company and letting people know that they'll build them anything they want. Another gorgeous piece from the 1890s by the Studebaker company.
This is a 1910 EMF Model 30. It takes its name from its horsepower rating. Studebaker offered two lines, the Flanders 20, which had 20 horsepower, and the EMF 30. The EMF stood for the company's founders, Everett, Metzger, and Flanders. Studebaker didn't actually build automobiles in their own plants during much of the early years. They entered into a marketing arrangement with other companies. So for much of the early 1900s, you had the Flanders Company and the EMF supplying Studebaker automobiles. Eventually, by 1911, Studebaker was convinced the automobile was here to stay. They bought the companies in their entirety, and the Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company was now known as the Studebaker Corporation.
Andy, I got a question for you right now. I mean, Studebaker did not start out building gas engines. They started out with electric vehicles. What year was that?
1902 was Studebaker's first automobile, and electric, in particular because J.M. Studebaker, really the last of the family to be in charge of the company, he much preferred the electric vehicles. He said gasoline engines were dangerous, clumsy, noisy brutes that stank to high heaven and broke down at the worst possible moment. Whereas with electric, just about anyone could drive one. You hopped in, you flipped a switch, and off you went. So first couple of years, it was just electrics before gasoline-powered cars came along in 1904.
Now, if I remember right from the article I read about it, back then, now we're talking 1902, this is a 1911 electric vehicle, but they were getting about 70 miles per charge.
Yeah, of course, it depended some on your driving style, but yeah, 70 miles on a charge is what they advertised, and you know, for most people, when you consider how far they were going, that was more than enough.
You know, one of the things we're going to tell you today in this program is how advanced Studebaker always was when it came to motor vehicles.
That was their top-of-the-line model. They had the Light 6, the Special 6, and the Big 6.
Okay.
And it was
And they call this a children's hearse because
Yeah.
it is smaller, because it is for
It
kids?
was designed specifically for children's funerals.
This 1922 Studebaker Big 6 children's hearse. Look how elegant this thing is. I mean, just an all-around beautiful thing with the stained glass and that. 1922, that's what they were doing.
This 1928 Studebaker Commander was a record-setting car back in the day. It set a new endurance mark by traveling 25,000 miles in less than 23,000 minutes. This feat was performed by Studebaker test drivers at a track in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where for literally 16 days straight, they managed to average 65.3 miles an hour. And it should be noted, that was driving, that was everything. Every time they came in for a pit stop, for driver changes, for fuel and oil, flat tires, the clock was still ticking. And very few other cars, and none in the price class, could do what Studebaker was doing back in the day.
1932 Studebaker President convertible. Now, folks, I've talked about the Roaring 20s and the heyday and Art Deco design and all of that for many, many years. That's one of the eras I love. This is one of the reasons I love that era. They built stuff with integrity, class. Man, I say this all the time. People laugh at me sometimes, but tell me this car isn't sexy. I mean, this really turns me on. Any car guy or car person would get turned on by a vehicle like this. Now, back in 1932, you got to figure this. It's the height of the Depression. This car was going for $2,000. That was a lot of money. Back then, people were making $7, $8 a week if they were lucky. Average person made about $200 to $400 a year. The average person. You had to be upper middle class. I'd say you have to be even higher than upper middle class to own a vehicle like this. But folks, it's gorgeous. Here's another beautiful 1932 President convertible sedan. What can I say? I just said everything about the two-seater, the coupe. Now we have this sedan. And folks, I was asking earlier about this vehicle. Did it come with these colors on them? Because a lot of times a guy will take a vehicle like this and, I don't want to say customize it, but they make it the way they want it. In fact, back in the day, these vehicles, you came in and you ordered them and you ordered your colors. So a lot of the movie stars in that ordered stuff like this, but even people that were buying it, they were able to pick their own colors. This burgundy color with this cream, it just really, really puts the vehicle in, as we say in the car industry, it pops when you look at it. What a gorgeous 1932 Studebaker President convertible sedan. You know, one of the coolest things about a museum like this is when they take and they use the space intelligently. They put up posters of the era, but they also have an engine here, a radio, a microphone, and all kinds of other things that add to the scene of the beauty of these automobiles. I love when you go to a museum and you have things like this. It keeps your interest totally. People will walk by, I remember that, or that's cool, or that's neat, or whatever. I've been in so many museums where there's nothing on the walls. It's just painted even black. This is really, really cool. So when you do come to a museum like this, well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, South Bend, Indiana, Studebaker Museum, it's a must-see. When you come, take a look at all the other stuff that they have here, not just the vehicles. I'm Richie Z for Chicago History and Automotive Heaven. For more information, you can check us out on YouTube at Richie Z, RICHIEZIE. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and my website, which is richiez.com. Also, if you like programming like this, we're having some issues with some computers and we need some equipment for the television show. So I have a GoFundMe page up also at Richie Z, RICHIEZIE. Any contribution would help greatly to get some more equipment and be able to go out and shoot more museums like this, more historic churches in Chicago. We're going to be doing some more tours of Chicago also. For all that information, you can contact me direct at 312-841-2560. Go to Richie Z, 312-841-2560. Check out our website at richiez.com, RICHIEZIE.com. Go fund me at Richie Z. It's very important that we get funding for programming like this.